don't know if it's going to affect Russia because Vladimir Putin wants to obviously probably keep the war going, but we're going to put tariffs on various things. As US President Donald Trump, as he announces he'll wait no longer than 10 days for Russia to reach a peace deal with Ukraine. And to discuss Donald Trump's changing approach to Ukraine and Russia, we're joined by Diane Francis, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Good evening.
Good evening.
So first, let's talk about the timing of Donald Trump's latest announcement concerning Russia. Why do you think has he decided to shorten the 50-day deadline just now?
Well, I think he's talking to himself. Russia's not listening. I think there's a basic misunderstanding on the part of the president. Some people say he's collaborator. I don't think there's any evidence of that. That Russia wants to end this war. Russia does not want to end the war in Ukraine. It will not end the war in Ukraine until it's defeated somehow and somehow forced. But it will not voluntarily sit down with Ukraine and cut a deal. Its terms are nothing less a complete capitulation on the part of Ukraine. No army, no NATO, no status, the whole thing, and no boots on the ground to protect them. So, he's shadowboxing with a mythological entity called Russia that has no interest whatsoever in stopping the bloodshed and the slaughter. Zero.
But maybe tariffs can make Vladimir Putin join the negotiating table. Now, on Wednesday, President Trump announced 25% trade tariffs for India and has already criticized New Delhi for buying Russia's oil and arms. Now, is this an early herald of what will happen in 10 days? Or will Donald Trump be accused again of a great fondness for the Mexican cuisine? I'm talking about the infamous taco slogan.
Yeah, I think that I don't think the taco thing is funny, but when you do negotiations, you set a price and then you shift and you change your mind and you hope you meet in the middle. So that's kind of what he's done with tariffs. But what is completely missing in his tariff war against the world, against his allies, his neighbors, is he hasn't slapped any tariffs of any consequence on the biggest enemy of the entire Western civilization, which is Russia. So yes, sanctions are a good idea. He must also allow Congress to impose the draconian tariffs on oil customers of Russia. That is essential. They're proposing up to 500% tariffs on countries like China and India that are financing the Russian war because they buy, and that includes Hungary, it includes Serbia, it includes Turkey, who buy Russian oil and are financing the war. And so that is another weapon in his arsenal that he should be using, apart from some kind of deadline that's meaningless. The other thing, of course, is besides secondary sanctions, the United States must increase its commitment to back Ukraine in terms of providing weapons. The Europeans and the United States must get their act together and seize the central bank assets of Russia and deploy that directly in buying missiles to attack inside Russia. I think this is what has to happen, or nothing changes.
Well, maybe there is already such a plan, because Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said on Wednesday that, quote, there are many signs indicating that the Russian-Ukraine war may at least be suspended in the near future. So probably Donald Trump already has a plan for what to do with Russia. Maybe a plan that the Polish government is already aware of.
Well, I stand to be corrected. I don't have the inside track. I'm not a leader of a state. I hope Poland's right. But other sources are reporting widely that actually Putin is doubling down on his war. He is conscripting more soldiers. He is paying bigger bonuses to get people to join the army. He's recruiting from all over the world soldiers. He is doubling down on the amount of money he's allocating and spending on military equipment. There seems to be no abatement in anything at all. And in fact, one NATO expert suggested that Putin is getting ready for war with NATO. in a couple of years, because he's not stopping.
Well, now I'd like to ask you about a certain sequence of events. Now, the U.S. negotiates a trade deal with China. Donald Trump threatens to impose tariffs against countries who buy fossil fuels from Russia. China and Russia conduct joint Navy drills in the Pacific Ocean. Now, do you see a connection here?
China is a big supplier of armaments, and not directly armaments, but components and technology that helps his war machine. There's definitely that case, but its biggest contribution is the fact that it's this huge buyer of Russian oil. And if that stops, then that's very significant in terms of preventing Putin from continuing the war that he does not want to end.
Pete Hegseth is to run for the governor of Tennessee. That's according to NBC. Pentagon says it's absolutely fake news. But could there be something brewing up in the Trump administration? And could it mean a more hawkish approach to Russia, as Pete Hegseth was the person to stall arms deliveries to Ukraine?
Well, I think there will be a more hawkish response, because if there's the only good thing about Trump's 10-day deadline is that Putin will completely ignore it. He will completely ignore it and embarrass the President of the United States once again, who's already agreed to give more weapons and have Germany pay for it and so on. He will now have to reach more deeply into other tools to pressure Russia. And as I say, seizing the central bank assets is number one on my list. Number two is increasing the amount of weapons that he will permit to be used inside Russia to put pressure on Russia, putting more diplomatic pressure on Russia, putting sanctions on all of its oil customers, including allies like Turkey and Brazil and whoever else. And so he's got to invoke all of those weapons to stop, or even to slow down, because Putin is just doubling down.
And yet, well, let me quote a certain Diane Francis. 4 months ago, you said, Russians are stringing along Trump with promises that they would help him deal with Iran and its nuclear ambitions and help him isolate or control China. If he believes that, then he's very naive. Now, has he finally become disillusioned with Putin? And the question is whether the US can afford to have unsettled disputes with both Moscow and Beijing.
Well, I think that Mr. Trump has gone to school on all of this. He uses the word disappointed, and it's interesting. And he's starting to realize that, the business of diplomacy and history is not easily done. And, you've got to do the right thing no matter how expensive and unsavory it might be. He is realizing this. Ever since the last ceasefire demand on Russia, which was also ignored. Remember that Russia doubled or tripled the bombing of civilians throughout Ukraine, to the point where Donald Trump's wife, who's Slavic, by the way, she's Slovenian, has finally stepped up and said to him, this is unacceptable. You can't have people killing children and women and civilians and ruining a country. And she said the same thing about Gaza. So, he's starting to listen to his wife, and his wife is very much in tune with the American public. This is unacceptable. And Russia has got to be dealt with more sternly and more toughly than has been in the case in the past. So I think he's finally getting it. He's no longer enamored with, Putin, my pal, and all that, and I can do this in 24 hours. He's gotten nowhere. He's gotten nowhere since he's taken office.
Well, it's always wise to listen to your wife. Now, lastly, the Russian propaganda never stops to underline that there is no alternative to war in Ukraine, and it simply has to be fought till the end, however bitter it is. Now, this sentiment is especially popular among the younger population. I mean, those who are raised in the Putin era. Now, can therefore Putin afford to end the war at all? Or maybe he simply cannot do it.
Your question is rooted in the speculation that he cares about his political future. He doesn't have to. He's the boss. He's the dictator. So he doesn't care what, young people, old people, the widows of the soldiers think. Basically, he regards what he's doing as a divine pursuit and the national destiny of the Soviet Union to resurrect itself through him. This is his mission. This is not a special operation, which he calls it, in Ukraine. You know, we all know that Ukraine is just getting the worst of it. Belarus is next. The Baltics are next. Poland is next. You know, this is his mission. And the Central Asian republics are next. So, you know, ascribing sort of motivations that, you know, well, let's entice him with this, or we have leverage here to frighten him there, nothing will work, because the guy is absolutely focused and thinks that's his national destiny to recreate the Soviet Union. And that's where he is.
Diane Francis, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council, was our guest this evening. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And thank you for watching, and stay with us for much more here on TVP World.